So Prisha asked me to sing this song. I can't say I really wrote it. Many years ago, I was actually trying to write a song, and I worked very hard at it. And after, quite a bit of time, I actually finally got it to work. And then I was sitting there, just kind of in a peaceful state, and I thought, it feels like there's another song. And this song came out in 5 minutes. The other song took about, many hours. So it goes with, roughly with a poem of Masters from Whispers of Eternity. It's called, My Eyes Were Made to See Thy Glory. My voice was made to sing thy glory, my ears were made to hear thy call, my eyes were made to see thy beauty shining through us all. My hands I give into thy service, my mind will learn thy truths alone, my soul I offer as a channel to guide thy children home. You can sing with me if you'd like. My voice was made to sing thy glory, my ears were made to hear thy call, my eyes were made to see thy beauty shining through us all. My hands I give into thy service, my mind will learn thy truths alone, my soul I offer as a channel to guide thy children home. So I was told that often on these satsangs you follow along with the kind of the worldwide Ananda readings, and is that true? More or less? There are exceptions. But anyway, I looked today, when I came home, I thought at the reading, and I thought, oh my gosh, you have, because it ties directly into Education for Life. So if you thought you missed the Education for Life talks, you didn't. You're going to have some more. It's a reading that refers to the transformation through history, especially through the Jewish and Christian, and then to the teachings of Master, the progression. It's kind of an allegory almost. And Swami points out, he says, when the Jews, if you know their story, it's kind of started, they were in bondage. They were slaves in Egypt for a long time, 4 centuries, I think it was. And then Moses came along, and he liberated them. It's an amazing story. It's a really fun story if you have a chance to see it. And he took them out of bondage. He took them into a desert land, and he had a contact with God. God gave him the 10 Commandments, and then from those 10 Commandments, there are lots of other laws. So the Jewish religion has a lot of rules in it, like how to behave in pretty much every part of life, how to cut your hair, how to use your beard, or how to cook food, which food to cook, the whole thing. You've probably heard of kosher foods that have to be prepared a certain way. Anyway, a lot of rules. And then Jesus came along, and Swami's talking about how Jesus came along to tell him, you can go beyond the rules. There's another dimension of living a spiritual life that is not necessarily bounded by rules. Not that the rules are bad, but you don't have to work with them individually all the time. Like he taught, like there was a rule about on the Sabbath, which for Jews would be Saturday mainly, You're not supposed to do any work on the Sabbath. And Jesus was healing people on the Sabbath. And the priests got very upset with him because he said, you're supposed to be not doing any work on the Sabbath. And Jesus kind of said, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. And his way of teaching that the rules were only a guide to start, but things like healing, things like doing good works, that shouldn't be affected by those rules. So he was trying to help them go beyond rules to from the outer to an inner experience of what religion was all about. It's not just following rules. There should be some substance to it that you're actually learning to connect with. And he had mixed success with the Jews. They were the ones that crucified him. But his teaching spread. And there has been an emphasis in Christianity to some extent about having a connection with Jesus, a personal connection with Jesus. And Master said Swami said that Master arrived to take it the next step, to say that the real purpose of religion is to experience love. That what really God is, as the essence of God is love, and that we can actually attune ourselves to that love and become channels for that love, just to share with each other and the rest of the planet. Well, how that ties into Education for Life is we have these 4 stages of growth. We call it progressive development. Of course, Swami was the one that created all this and who knew all these other things for a background. One of the amazing things about Education for Life is that you think it's for children, but it's for everybody. It really has, all the teachings are in it in a very practical, specific form. So what it says is that when a child or an adult is just very low energy, like they're just kind of sleeping and eating, and that's about all to their life. They don't have, it's kind of like it's like the slavery stage for the Jews. They're just told what to do and they have to do it. They don't have any choice. And what they need to wake up. They need to get their energy going. And so Moses comes in and he starts to energize them, takes them out of bondage. And that takes us to the second stage. We call it ego-active, contractive. And that's when a child or an adult, they have a lot of energy, but it's out of control. They're just wild. They're just bouncing off the walls. They're causing chaos. And what they need then is a lot of rules. They need a lot of very clear guidelines, and they need really clear consequences if they go over that, because that's the only way they're going to grow. They don't have any inner sensitivity yet. So the adults, the teachers, whoever, has to provide that structure to them in a very clear, firm way. It's a very hard lesson for teachers to learn. You have to be able to set those boundaries. So that's that second stage where Moses is working with his people. They didn't know how to behave. They didn't know what it meant to be a spiritual people. So he said, here, follow these rules. Honor thy mother and thy father. Thou shalt not lie. Thou shalt not steal. All these different things that were very clear. And of course, the way that we're taught at that stage is that life teaches us, if we transgress those rules, we get bad karma. Things happen to us. We end up, like if we steal from other people, sooner or later people are going to steal from us. And we're going to have to learn the hard way that, I don't like it to have my things stolen. Or if we harm somebody else, if we hit somebody else, we're going to get hit. Sooner or later, somebody's going to come around and smack us one. And we're going to learn these lessons the hard way, the school of hard knocks. This is the level of that. I don't know if that's a term in India. It is in the United States. You have the school of hard knocks. But that's, of course, not the end result. And unfortunately, some schools stop at that level, and they think you always treat children that way, which is not the case, which is Education for Life is trying to take us beyond that, to the level that you can start to go beyond the rules, and you can start to see that there's something underneath there. But you have to look for it. You have to go inside. You have to learn to introspect. So teachers are at this next level. They're often asking a child, how do you feel? How do you feel after, maybe it was a difficult thing, after somebody had a fight. How do you feel after the fight? Well, I feel angry. I feel upset. Okay, good, at least you're aware of how you're feeling, and you can start to work from that and how to get rid of that, but that's a whole other chapter. But the idea is that you're learning to look underneath the rules for how do the rules affect you? How do the rules make you feel? It's not enough just to follow the rules. They should be doing something to you. They should be uplifting your consciousness. So that's this part that where in this metaphor that Swami was sharing today in the readings today, that's the part where Jesus comes. Jesus says, look behind the rules. Try to go deeper. Well, as you learn that, as you work with that thing, and you find out that, oh, I feel a whole lot better when I help other people. I feel a whole lot better when I share my things with other people. I feel a whole lot better when I give love and joy rather than when I'm just being wild and crazy. And that's the beginning of what the whole idea, your whole relationship with God starts to change, because you don't need all those really harsh rules anymore. You've grown beyond them. You don't want to break the rules. You realize that these rules are actually their guidelines. They're guidelines for living a beautifully uplifting life. And so that's where this whole idea, when you start to look inside, it's not that easy. Our senses are so used to the energy is going out through the senses all the time. From the time we wake up in the morning till the time we go to sleep at night, we're just constantly involved in the senses. And Master comes along, he says, you have to learn how to turn the searchlight of the senses from outside back inside. You have to learn to meditate, basically. You have to learn how to take that energy and focus it inward. Why? Because that's where you're going to find these deeper experiences that actually that you were made for. You were made to feel love inside. You were made to feel peace, just like in our little meditation. You were made to be able to feel joy. But maybe you can't do it at first because you're so used to the senses going outward. It's a little bit like if you've been in a bright room like this and outside it's very dark, and somebody invites you to go out on the porch. And so you go out on the porch, and at first you can't see anything. Your eyes are so used to the light that nothing's happening out there as far as you're concerned. But if you stay out there for a while and your eyes start to change, all of a sudden you start to see, oh my gosh, there's a moonlight and there's a beautiful bush over there, and the stars are come out, and you start to see all these wonderful things. Well, it's the same thing with meditation. At first, when you close your eyes, oh, nothing's happened. I tried that. Okay, what's next? But if we can persevere a little bit and realize that it's a strong inertia that we've set in motion by our previous life experiences of being only in the senses, that we will learn, if we practice regularly, we will learn that we can become aware of those inner realities. And those inner realities is the highest octave of religion, because that's when we start to see God is really a loving God. God is love. And we, as his creations, his children, are going to be able to experience that love and actually learn that we can live in that love all the time as we grow eventually. That's what a master is. A master is somebody who has learned to be able to become aware of those blessings all of the time. So our picture of God at first, and you see this, and some people, they need a God who seems stern, because that's the only way they're going to behave. That if you don't behave, you're going to get smacked. And there are a lot of religions on this planet that are that way. But they're not wrong, because they're appropriate for that level of consciousness. Because without that, those people wouldn't behave. They would go wild. So we need those kind of religions on the planet at this point, but they aren't the ultimate octave of it, because God is only, in that sense, God is playing stern with us because that's what we need. It's just like a really good teacher. A really good teacher can be really stern with a student, but they're not mad at the student. They're only being stern because that's the only way that student will pay attention to them. If you just say, come on, would you please stop throwing paper in the classroom? And the child, yeah, no, I don't care what you say. And if you come up to them and you say, would you please stop throwing that paper in the classroom? And you get their attention and you give that full energy to them. Then that gets the message across, and the child, they kind of wake up and they say, oh, okay, I'm not going to do that anymore because my teacher gets mad at me. But like I said, if it's a really good teacher, they're not mad at you. They're just showing you, in the United States they call it tough love, but they're showing you a very strong image of that. So it's underneath, and so as you grow spiritually and you go deeper and deeper into these levels, you start to realize, oh, God really is loving. He was loving when he was yelling at me. There's the story of Master with who was scolding one of the nuns, and this is a classic example of this. So the nun needed to be yelled at. She wasn't getting the message in softer ways. She wasn't listening to Master. So Master was walking up and down the room, and she was over there. And when he was walking towards her, I think Swami Kriyananda was in the room watching this, at least he tells the story, he would be very fierce, and he was just like a storm coming up and, talking to the lady and talking very strongly. Then he'd turn around and he'd walk back, and he would just relax, and his face would relax, and you would see that he wasn't caught up in that anger, but then he'd turn around and he'd give her another blast, and eventually she got the message. So God does need to be that with us when we're really misbehaving. If we overeat and we don't learn our lesson, we're going to create some real problems for ourselves and our health. Our health is going to backfire on us, and we're going to be sick. We're going to end up suffering. And those laws of nature are there, and if we do break them, we think bad things happen. But we can grow beyond it, and that's the purpose of Master coming at this time in history, to make it clear that there is this higher octave of spirituality, and we can aspire to it if we make the effort that way. Okay. Happy to share with you.
We are going to be singing Home is a Green Hill, that somebody recommended that we sing, dedicated to Nitai, who is moving soon to India. And I'm sure he has moved around many times in his life. And even though Gurgaon is not a green hill, the message of this song obviously is that when we are silent, we discover that our home is everywhere. Home is where the heart is. Home is really our inner self. So we have 50% of the people here are new to the choir, but they have done wonderfully in the practice, so we'll enjoy. Home is a green